Hi, my name is Cynthia. I'm a solution architect for a international accounting and auditing firm. I create solutions for clients to automate the processes. I'm 54. I use she, they pronouns. I've always identified as female, though I never knew that there was anything I could do about it till I was in my mid-20s. When a friend of mine showed me a picture of a magazine that had a woman who had been had the surgery, vaginoplasty. And at that point in time, it all just made sense. At that time, I was in university studying, and I came out the first time. Before I came out, I was in a committed relationship with a woman. It was going super well. It was good, but it wasn't quite me. Wouldn't have been quite her if I'd come out with her. That would never have worked because she wanted a man, I was not a man. So I was in school, I came out. It was rather interesting. I was at my parents' place, and when I came out to my mom, I told her, "Mom, I'm a girl." And she said, "Okay, I'm going to bed, don't tell your father." And she didn't talk to me for the rest of the trip. At that time, I was living with somebody because I was still in school. We were sharing an apartment. And he decided that I was his girlfriend, whether I wanted to be or not. And it just went really bad from there in a lot of ways. After the incident with the man I was living with, when I was liberated from that, I lived with another trans woman for like nearly 15 years as friends. What years was that? That was from the 90s to about 2010. That I lived with two women, a lesbian couple. The one woman she's still transgender. And we were very similar people. At that time, I came out to my doctor, who promptly referred me to the Royal Ottawa Hospital, where I went through a ton of testing to make sure that I wasn't making this up. And the fact that at that time, gender dysphoria was a disorder. It wasn't anything that people really did. The first time I came out, it was still considered a disorder to be transgender. And you had to go through rigorous testing to get any sort of assistance with it. As I said earlier, I was in the forensic psychology department of the hospital, where they dealt with things like pedophiles, rapists, people like that. So it was always very scary to be there. The second time I came out, it was a lot different. It was no longer disorder. I was believed right from the start that, yeah, okay, you can be transgender, that's fine. My doctor was very understanding and caring. Right away, he started me on blockers again. Like right away, the first time I came out to him, he started me on blockers again. And he was willing to give me other hormones right away, but because of my relationship with my wife, I wasn't going to go on estrogen, because that would be against her wishes. The other thing was, the first time I came out, there was a lot more violence against trans people. It was a lot riskier to go out and be out because it was just risky to be out. You were considered some sort of deviant. So that would have been, I was 25, so almost 30 years ago. I went to a doctor and I said, I want to be a woman. And I was promptly referred to the Royal Ottawa Hospital, the forensic psychiatry department, where I shared access with doctors with people who were sex criminals and stuff like that. So it was rather scary waiting to see the doctor there. They all believed me that I was a woman, but the process was kind of arduous. In order to even be considered for hormones, I had to be working 2 years as a woman. That's before they'd even consider like testosterone blockers. It was very different than what it was the second time I came out. Because in between, the doctor convinced me to detransition because I was never going to get the surgery because I was bipolar. My mental faculties weren't well enough to be considered for the surgery. So she worked with me and guided me to go back to being male. When I had to go back to playing that role, it was only ever part-time and publicly. When I was on my own, I was still female, but I presented male to the world because that's what was expected of me. I was still dealing with some mental health challenges. The only good thing that happened was in 2010, I met up with my wife. We had been high school sweethearts and we separated. Then in 2010 we met up again and all of those feelings came back for her. I loved her, I wanted to be with her. And because I had gone back to presenting male most of the time, she was like quite happy to come back with me. She knew that I was transgender and she helped me when I wasn't presenting male to present female. She taught me things like hair and makeup and how to walk, how to talk. But there was always the expectation that I was her husband. I was never her wife. My wife, she was understanding that I was transgender, but at the end of the day, she wanted a husband, she didn't want a wife. So while at times I would come home from work and I would change into my feminine clothes, she would say, "Oh, my lady's joining me for dinner tonight." But it was only ever part-time. She never would have allowed me to be fully female with her. She wanted a husband, not a wife. Processing that was rather difficult because I knew who I was and I wanted to be a woman so bad all the time that I did it when she wasn't around. I did it very often when I would come home from work. But I don't think that if she didn't have ALS, that we would have stayed together. I think that our relationship would have split apart because she did not want a wife, she wanted a husband. I could be that husband at the time, but given time, it would have ended because I needed to be me. It's unfair that while she had ALS and she did pass away sometime later, in a lot of ways that's better than having to deal with the pushback from failed marriages, because it's just not something I have to worry about. How she would have felt if I wanted my stepkids for Christmas, for example. There was no conflict between us because of me being transgender and her wanting something different. Unfortunately, she had ALS and passed away a few years after we started seeing each other again. She left behind 2 boys who, while I was presenting as my old self, they were fine. When I decided I was going to transition again after my wife died, because life is short. You only have so much of it to live, and you can either live it happy or unhappy. And I wanted to live it happy. So I started a transition again, which was a lot different than the first time I transitioned. Access to medical care was a lot better. I was on hormones for a month of coming out to my doctor. Well, I was on blockers. It took a little bit longer to be on estrogen because I couldn't do that while my wife was still alive. But I could be on the blockers, which in a lot of ways do more for you than the estrogen does, because it calms your brain. It gets rid of all the aggressive thoughts that you have. It makes you much more at ease to have the blockers. And once my wife died, I was immediately started on estrogen, and that was about 2018 that she passed away, after a really long, hard struggle against ALS. In 2018, it was a lot different than the first time I came out. It was just immediately believed, okay, yeah, you're a woman. You didn't have to go through rigorous testing to prove that you were stable. And I went through testing for 6 months before they finally decided that I was transgender, which I knew for a long time before that, because I had friends that were transgender, and they were like, yeah, you're like us. You identify as female, and they were really helpful at the time. So when I came out the first time, I was living with a man because we were going to school together. We were sharing an apartment. I came out to him. While he was supportive, he was also very possessive. I was his. I couldn't do anything without him. I didn't want to do things with him, but I was forced to do things with him that I didn't want to do. So this time when I came out, I chose a different name, because the first time I came out I chose Jennifer, which was a rather very common female name. Second time I came out, things were so much better, other than just losing my wife. I was on disability pension, and it was interesting though that the company I work for, they approached me and said, hey, you want to come back to work for us? We have needed somebody that does what you used to do. And that was wonderful. And they knew about the transgender. Somebody that I was quite close with before, he approached me. That was really wonderful that they came back like that and said, and brought me back on. And there's never been any fallbacks to like the previous when I was presenting male, first time that I worked for them. And they treat me just like any other woman. And it's really, really amazing. Other than working with technology, I'm a very creative person. I maintain a blog where I teach people how to program games. unfortunately, I'm not an artist, so I have to go with the graphics I can find on the web, which they're good enough for demonstration purposes. And I write. I love writing. While I was coming out the first time, I took courses on writing literature for children and teenagers. I took 3 of them, and I actually published 4 books under my old name. And I do other creative things like crafting jewelry. It's my wife got me into it, actually. That she worked for Michael's, and there was a course one weekend on crafting jewelry, and she convinced me to go to it, which was wonderful. I was taught how to craft things like my earrings, necklaces, bracelets, all of that wonderful stuff. And now that I'm here, I'm thinking of getting it back into it. My biggest dream for the future is one of 2 things. I want to either create a video game that is loved by millions, or republish a book that would be loved by millions. So my biggest dream is to either write a video game or write books, one of the 2. Right now, I am really, really waiting for my vaginoplasty. It's been approved, it's just a matter of scheduling now. And I'm looking forward to that day. I've had other trans surgeries. I've had breast implants, and I've had an orchiectomy, which was much better than any spiral blocker or testosterone blocker that I'd taken before. It's just so nice to have that part gone and not having to worry about it anymore. You know, there's one thing that has guided me in life, and that is how much of your life are you going to spend happy and how much are you going to spend unhappy. That's ever since I was in my mid-20s when my best friend died in a car crash, and I came out the first time. My guiding principle was I could spend the rest of my life miserable, or I can be true to myself and be happy. Being trans is scary. Even today, there's violence, and governments are starting to fall back on older legislation. So it's definitely worth coming out and being your authentic self compared to living life as something that is so totally foreign to you. While it is hard to come out, it is so worth it, even though it's going to change a lot. It changes in so many ways. Above everything else, to yourself be true. It makes your life so much easier when you are true to yourself than when you're being something that you don't want to be.